Noisy Pixel.
Hey, folks, and welcome back to the Noisy Pixel podcast brought to you by noisypixel.net. We've been away for a little while, but we're back now. I'm your host for the show today, Arthur, and I'm joined by a familiar voice for you today, Azario. I was going to say your title, and I realized I don't actually know what your title is. I probably should have looked that up just a moment ago. But
Big kahuna.
I don't like. They say founder.
Founder was what I was going to go with, but I detected that you weren't going to be cool with that.
I don't like the name founder. I just want to be the dude.
The dude. I was going to say, if you had to pick your title, what would you go with? So you're going with the dude.
The dude.
We're also joined by two contributors to Noisy Pixel. We got Ian. Ian, you have to pick your own title as well.
Staff writer, I think, is my official.
Very, very formal.
Yeah.
Very original. Brian, you going to be equally professional? You going to go a little further?
No, it's going to be occasionally does stuff.
Occasionally does stuff.
The one that wants to leave, but I won't let him.
When you least expect it, he's there.
Yeah, so the host, the dude, staff writer, and occasionally does stuff have gotten together to occasionally talk about some video games, which we do at Noisy Pixel quite frequently. Mm-hmm. So we're going to go over some news, the format of this podcast. We're going to go over some news, and then later we're going to talk about some games that are coming out. Do you do timestamps, Azario? This is another thing I probably should have figured out before we started recording.
I will, because now you put me on the spot, and now everyone's going to be expecting timestamps.
When I listen to a podcast, if I'm watching an over an hour long video anywhere, there needs to be timestamps, because I'm not just going to click through the whole thing to figure out where we're talking about.
You're absolutely right. This podcast,
we have that as an option. I remember doing that for the old podcast episodes. Just
with a name like Noisy Pixel Podcast, you need to go above and beyond, and I will take the time to make that happen.
Oh, well, you got the marketing spin ready to go in your head. So maybe you can explain to me this first story about Nintendo. The article says that it revealed that the Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword Amiibo would be coming out in July, and it's going to be tied to a basic functionality in the game. Azario, do you want to explain this at all?
I've played this game before,
Skyward Sword,
and I hated it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give this one to Ian, because he's my Skyward Sword expert.
Okay. Well, I did not. I mean, I'm a huge Zelda fan, but I didn't like the game either. So, but I guess what maybe people are kind of bummed about, and what I'm bummed about, is like, it seemed like this was maybe a second chance to kind of get it at least better or a little right without the weird controls, that were originally in the title. But the Amiibo that they are releasing is going to have a fast travel, essentially. And it would have been nice maybe to just have that in the game without having to pay this. It sounds like it's $25, I think, for this Amiibo.
Yeah, $24.99 coming out July 16th. Okay. And do you know if the fast travel was in the original version of Skyward Sword that came out for the Wii?
No, you had to go to these statues, and then you could. So you had to find these statues, and then you could go to the sky. There's a land below and the sky above. And it's just a bummer, because if you are releasing a game that I think the consensus is that it could have been a lot better. And to have this as an additional thing is, and the other thing about it, paying for that is, I mean, I have a ton of Amiibos that have features, and I don't usually just have them laying around. So it's also kind of cumbersome to have this Amiibo, like, put it on your Switch to just have this instead of just having it in game. And being able to do
you have other ones that you're using more frequently, right?
Yeah. And it's, if like myself, you have them on display, so you're also using this Amiibo, and maybe that's the incentive, is that you'll have one on display, you'll have one for use.
You get up to grab another slice of pizza, and you step on it, and so you broke it.
I know.
There goes the fast travel. Can't fast travel.
Can't fast travel anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. And it's just like, because I really want that Amiibo, but at the same time, like, I don't want to. It sucks, man. I don't want to.
I guess I'm
the Nintendo machine.
I'm unclear if they are gatekeeping a feature that was already there, or is this something that they're adding?
No, it's something that they're adding. So it's like
but you just said there are these statues that you would walk up to, and then you could kind of fast travel like that.
Right? That was the original way you could. This one is you put the Amiibo on the Switch, and it lets you do it automatically.
Oh, so from anywhere.
From anywhere you are.
From anywhere.
But can you still do the statue fast travel as well? Do we know the answer to that? Yeah.
Yeah, you can, because I mean that it's a requirement of the game that you have to go in between these two worlds essentially. But it's just it's like, hey, we made this thing better, but you have to use this figure in order to make it better, which in turn is just as cumbersome to me. Like it's tedious to have like this Amiibo that you paid an extra like $25 for to have this fast travel, instead of just being like, hey, I know it kind of sucked the first time around, so we made it better.
That's the remastered feature. Nintendo's not shy to go back and remaster old Zelda games.
Yeah.
But a remaster is like, if you're going to go back and add new features, why is this a feature that you're going to charge an extra $25 for? Like why not charge the extra $25? Like, I don't know, a stupid Tingle mini game, or I don't know. I don't know, you know,
right.
Like
if it's go ahead. To like Amiibo availability too, right? Like what happens if, you know, you can't get your hands on this Amiibo, you can't use the feature ever.
Nerds have way too much money right now.
If it came with like a download code for like to patch that into your game, then maybe it would be a little bit more reasonable so that someone can buy it separately if they wanted to, apart from the toy.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, if there's a Tingle Amiibo, I need to be paid to interact with that. Is there a contrarian argument here, though, that which I'm going to be taking the position of all the time, that if it's a remaster and the original game is intact, which has some version of fast traveling, and this is just an additional feature, then are you really missing out on anything? Like there's a comment on the website that says fast travel should be part of the base game, not something that is locked behind an additional purchase, which sounds like a very reasonable thing to say and think based on the information that we have. But I think it's overlooking that the game that you bought and played and you are trying to play again is still the way that it is. This is just something extra that I'm assuming Nintendo didn't think were very important. Otherwise, they wouldn't have locked it behind some additional purchases. Do you think there's any merit to that view?
I think personally, like what I'm kind of getting from it is more like this kind of arrogant, like, we know you'll buy this. And for me, that is true, that like the base game is still there. But the idea that they have the technology to do it, but it's behind this Amiibo. I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me personally.
I'm interested in knowing if someone who has the Amiibo and someone doesn't will experience the game two differently, or two different ways. You know, if I have the Amiibo, will I have more fun with the game besides Ian, who has to go back to these statues, who doesn't have the Amiibo? And I'm like, oh, I could just transfer out of anywhere, you know? I think if it affects the gameplay experience, it shouldn't be something that is tied behind a purchase that some people probably won't have access to. I mean, we're in areas in our life where we can go to Amazon or go to GameStop, but there are some places in America that don't really have like clear cut access to this stuff. Are they living under a rock? I don't know, but they're
not living in the metropolis of Central Valley, California.
Bunch of nerds.
Or Connecticut.
This is just an interesting thing. My thought process is, they spent a lot of money on this. Maybe pre-orders are doing well, or maybe they're not doing well enough. And here's this feature. Oh, we can get a little extra money off of this because they know we'll buy it. They know Zelda fans will buy this. They know. They're not stupid.
Yeah. You think Nintendo has been taking advantage of people with the Amiibo so far? I'm completely removed from this world entirely. So I don't know how it's going, but I have to imagine. Yeah.
It's such a gimmick that works. And when they come out, people buy them, even though they may use them once. I don't think I've ever used an amiibo, and I bought like 6 or 7 of them. And I know that like that's like the base of
Sorry, you do have like a problem though. Like
okay.
Just your background and all the purchasing posts.
One day I will get around to playing the games I own, but for now, I'll just look at them.
Yeah, I guess for me, it sits. I don't know. I really don't like it because I literally have all the Zelda amiibos, and I would have been happy to buy this regardless. But the fact that it's exclusive to the amiibo, I don't know.
Didn't Twilight Princess have something like this too with the dog?
In Breath of the Wild, you could have the wolf link, or it was like a wolf that you. The Minda and the wolf figure you could put on there, and then you would have a wolf follow you around, which for me it was like, oh, that's kind of cool just as an additional thing. And I guess
not like a mechanic. It's like it's a aesthetic sort of thing for
that's been my impression of any amiibo functionality. It's like
if
a
the
kind
dog
of nice
could
to
hit
have
something, then maybe having it tied to an amiibo would be bad because then you're like changing the gameplay to some extent.
But I guess with Skyward Sword, which had so much backtracking already, like the fast travel functionality is like a little insult to injury. Because to Azario's original point, would the experiences be different? I mean, it sounds like, to say disparagingly, the less time you have to spend backtracking and what was called sort of a boring, dull game for a big portion of it, then you're almost certainly going to have a better experience than someone who doesn't have that feature. So,
right.
Does anybody speed run this game? Because I feel like, do you think that's part of the strat? You know how they like change the language to make the text go by faster? You have to buy the amiibo as like the next layer of speed running.
Yeah, you can't be competitive unless you don't have the amiibo.
Exactly. It's like part of the speedrunner's kit. You have to buy amiibo.
It must have some love, but man, that was a rough one for me. Yeah.
Well, making old games good can be difficult, which we may find out with this next story that we're going to talk about, which is this announcement that Timesplitters may be coming back. I want to say well-known, but I don't think it's well-known. A PlayStation first-person shooter.
You've never walked through Walmart as a kid and just saw Timesplitters sitting right there, like just. Maybe I'll get around. Maybe I should ask Mom to buy me Timesplitters.
I do remember that story where my aunt was telling me that her nephew was lost to the game Timesplitters, right? No, that has not happened just yet. Although I believe it was very highly critically acclaimed when it came out. I think Timesplitters 2 was actually the one of, I think there were 3 games, although the third one not necessarily like the third of a trilogy or anything like that. But I do remember the second one getting a lot of critical acclaim, specifically for its multiplayer. And there was a lot of discussion for many, many years that studio, which I can go into if you guys want. I actually know quite a bit about it. Went through a lot of tumultuous bankruptcies and purchases, and then they were making Crisis at one point and Haze at another point. And there's always this question of if Timesplitters was going to come back. So this is kind of like the meme is no longer a dream. They're actually going to be making it. And somebody here said that they played the original Timesplitters.
I misspoke because I read it so fast. I thought it was Time Killers.
Ooh.
Which it's a very different game.
So no one knows anything about Timesplitters here, right?
But those who are waiting for it, you guys can have that now.
It's coming.
So, I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is growing up with games like this, there was always GoldenEye and there was always like Perfect Dark that were like, oh, these are like the quintessential first-person shooters. But when Timesplitters came out, I was so into Red Faction that I didn't want to get into like anything else. Like I didn't have any care for like another PS2 first-person shooter. So Timesplitters was just that like a cool name that I
later Free Radical. Red Faction is my bestie now.
Yeah, right. Loved Red Faction, and that's why like Timesplitters is always like this like game that I wanted to play.
I think that's where it sits for most people. It's like a game that people I've heard is kind of good, but never had a reason to check it out. I mean, it was also, I think, the original Timesplitters. Well, one of them came out in 2002, so I've been fresh off the heels of Halo, and that whole era of games where everybody was thinking, what's the Halo killer, as they say.
It was always the Halo killer.
Yeah, I mean, this studio was like defined by that. Like Haze, which is a PlayStation 3 first-person shooter and notably bad, was marketed as the Halo killer, which is really bizarre.
I remember.
Yeah, that was like a PlayStation 3 era. I guess Halo 3 came out on Xbox 360, so that was the same generation as well. But yeah, I mean, I never played Timesplitters. It's funny that you mentioned GoldenEye and Perfect Dark, because like that is the legacy, or not legacy, like the origins of this studio in the first place. Like in this announcement that's on the website, I think they specifically referenced that Steve Ellis and David Doak are going to be part of the group, and those are like the Timesplitters guys. And I looked them up on LinkedIn, and they are also the GoldenEye and Perfect Dark guys. Like they worked at Rare and then went on to make Free Radical. And based on the gameplay that I looked at on YouTube for Timesplitters, because again, I don't have any way to pick it up and check it out right now, it does really look like the continuation of GoldenEye and Perfect Dark. And sort of the unstated thing there is, GoldenEye and Perfect Dark are left in history for a reason. Like if you go back to them now, like it's fun for nostalgia, but like there's not some genius game design there that people have not been able to implement into modern games. They were sort of a time and place. And I guess that's sort of a question I would ask to you guys. And I don't know if there's anything useful we can say here, but like, what could you even make with a game like that? Like imagine GoldenEye, which I guess is something that we're more familiar with. Like, how could you make a new GoldenEye or a game like that one signals it has any relevancy to the original game you care about, while also still being relevant to what games are today?
It would be one of those retro. It would be one of those like, this is a retro callback to the old games, and a bunch of 40, 30-year-olds will be into it, and all the 20-year-olds will continue to play Fortnite. It wouldn't change anything. And then it would get mediocre reviews, 7s and 6.5s, because it doesn't compare to what GoldenEye was. Even though it looks better, even though it has modern controls, it's not GoldenEye, and that's probably what's going to happen with Timesplitters. So many people that are going to review this game are going to have so many memories of Timesplitters that nothing is going to compare to what they originally had with Timesplitters, which is always so like tough when you reboot a series with a name that people recognize,
Yeah. Right. What do you even do with that?
Yeah.
Right.
It's what does a modern Timesplitters, the series fell off the map. It kept coming out. EA got in on it. It's like it was here for a while, and people, it didn't click well as more games started coming out. So it's gonna be interesting. With 505 Games behind it, I believe they're the publisher. Is it 505?
That up.
Or
like you talking about the new one, or like back in the day?
The new one now.
No, I think they're part of the
Deep Silver
group. Yes.
I'm sorry, Deep Silver. Silver.
Mm-hmm. Deep Silver, which is part of the Embracer group. We're going around and just purchasing everything. Like they're like
THQs.
Yes. I was gonna say new THQ.
Oh yeah, it's like AA at its finest. This game is not going to get the budget that it needs to make any damage on like modern gaming. It'll sell, but
hey, I do have good news for you, Zario. According to Wikipedia, in May 2020, Deep Silver got the rights to Red Faction. So maybe.
Ooh. All I did in Red Faction though was right in the beginning, I would get the mech thing and I would just dig through the level until something happened, because you could just keep going. The whole level could crumble, and I just wanted to find all the secrets.
So adolescent Azario was not actually into Red Faction. You just were big into digging.
I just love digging. I just really, I had a knack for digging. And
you guys thought Minecraft was crazy?
Play the original Red Faction.
Red Faction time.
Yeah. It's basically the same game. Okay. All right. Well, now I don't have a flashy.
If you're into Timesplitters, this game's coming. How about that? There's the cap it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We can take that little clip of Azario predicting that it's gonna be a total failure, also known as a 7 out of 10, because that's what total failure is these days.
Then it becomes the next like hot thing.
Yeah.
No, it's just gonna be like a double A, your
B tier.
your Wired Productions published adventure game.
Yeah. Unlike the biggest video game of the past 10 years, you could argue, which is Grand Theft Auto 5.
Oh my goodness, the juggernaut.
Getting another next-gen release this November 11th. It's getting released on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I heard a joke a while ago that Grand Theft Auto 5 may be the first game to outlive a console.
Oh my God. Wow, it's about to.
I don't know if it's the first game
to think about.
I don't know if it's the first game that did that. I think Skyrim was re-released, but that was towards the end of a cycle, so I don't know if that counts as much. But I mean, at this rate, GTA 5, they're just going to keep releasing that game infinitely. I don't even know anyone who plays GTA 5.
Who is playing this game, you guys?
It's a lot of. It must be a lot of people, because isn't it like it's one of the top selling games ever, right?
Every month.
Yeah.
Every month.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Every month on the top of the charts. That in Minecraft.
Yeah. I don't know if I know of anybody that plays it either, but it's a thing. It happens.
Is online like the only thing that's keeping this thing going?
It's all online.
That's the thing I was looking up. I know Grand Theft Auto Online is really what people are purchasing.
Yeah.
And I was trying to look up how many people are playing it. I can find Steam charts, which say in the last 30 days, the average was 83,000 players.
Oh my God.
With a peak of 142,000. And that's actually up recently.
Probably with the new announcement.
Ebbs and flows.
It makes sense that they're doing it.
They sell car customization kits. They sell weapons, like exclusive skins.
I have to say, whenever like an online community like that, like the game is not, I mean, am I missing something? Like, I don't think Grand Theft Auto Online is like a notably great game.
It's a second life. It's a second life game.
I think it's pretty much just a community thing.
Because I'm assuming that there's like some pseudo, gray market money making going on, right? Like, FIFA Ultimate Team, like nobody's actually playing FIFA that much, right? They're just selling cards.
Yeah.
I do know from the little I have heard of like the community, though, the people that are playing the game, they just want a sixth one or some other game in the series instead of just having 5 again and again.
If people keep buying it, then I guess they're
not going to need to.
Their capitalist motivations are to just keep re-releasing it.
I used to play this game on PS4 online. I called it Grand Theft Auto Loading Edition because the load times were super long. And I have
to say, the origin of me liking video games is very much tied to Grand Theft Auto. Like I was big into GTA 3 when I was a child, and all the way through 4. I played GTA 5, and that was like the most underwhelming game I've played in a while.
It was too real for me.
It was too many gimmicks, I thought.
I just hated
too real.
People.
What, like the kid that's playing video games all the time? You're like,
I just resonated so well with my father yelling at me.
Yeah, while he's doing crime.
When you say real, you mean there wasn't like kind of like almost like a detachment or like a kind of cartoony element to it or something as much. Yeah.
It lost that charm, that kind of over the top kind of feel. In Vice City, you shot somebody and blood squirted up out of their neck, and I was like, blood can't really squirt out of their neck.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that branching thing that happened, right? So GTA 5 eventually Saints Row took over for like the comedy part of being.
That's what it was.
And then GTA went to GTA 5 to be like the serious.
It also helps that Saints Row was uniquely funny compared to GTA 5, which, despite having so much, let's say, humor, was also, I don't know, I guess I'm being super negative on it. I was very underwhelmed by it overall. I don't remember, it didn't even seem like a game that had a tone that like was having fun with itself. It was just kind of like this very negative, satirical, like cynical type of thing. Like it didn't have like a good-hearted nature to it. So, which is part of the reason why its lasting appeal is just so strange to me.
People just want to hang out. People just want to.
I think that's what
go online and play with their little friends. And
they should do Red Dead Online then, right?
Shoot people. They probably play that too, but doesn't have AK-47s and Red Dead
and cars
and motorcycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no hate for the series, but it just isn't my thing. Partly, I think, because like you were saying, it's just a little too real. And I wonder if that's because like with every game, they almost had to like up the edge and like, I don't know, it just feels a little edgelordy to me at this point, but I don't know. Yeah,
I think it was probably always edgelordy, but I was just more of an edgelord, so I like.
Yeah, maybe we were the edgelord.
Yeah, the game is the same. We have changed.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Which is not to say
it was always like controversial, right? And then there was always like people freaking about how edgy it is, and then they're just like leaning into it, like we're just gonna go all in. That's what we are now as GTA. GTA 5 maximum edgy. We're just gonna go full in.
Yeah. Maximum edgy.
Yeah, I can't. This you said this game was originally released 2013
on PS3 and Xbox 360.
Yeah, I can't really imagine like a AAA game that's designed on, being edgy or offending people being released. Like I don't think that's. I don't think, read the room, right? Like I don't think anyone's looking for that these days. So maybe there's a reason they're holding off on it. But I also know Rockstar's had a bunch of like operational management issues in the past few years. When the Hauser brothers left or something, I forget. Hey, tangential story that I'm just remembering right now. Did you guys hear this thing about how Grand Theft Auto 3 was reverse engineered? You know what I'm talking about?
No,
fill me in.
So it's similar to like the emulation community, where there's just this group of crazy people who really like GTA 3 and they've been trying to build it from scratch backwards. So they're not taking the source code and just copy pasting it and saying, hey, here it is. There are people that are just like looking at the assets and the machine code based on what was shipped, and they're trying to code it again in C++. And I guess earlier this year, the reverse engineered GTA 3 was finished and they released it on GitHub, and you could just totally play GTA 3, and it had a bunch of new quality of life improvements like widescreen support and fewer bugs and things like that. But then Take-Two sent them a DMCA takedown notice. Everybody knows how the story goes.
Yeah,
of course.
But I think it's triggering. I haven't checked up on this. I know that there's been some pushback because they're arguing it's literally not the code. Like the whole point of the project was that they
rebuilt the game.
Yeah. This has happened a lot through the gaming industry too, where engineers reverse engineer stuff and they try to take them to court and it just doesn't work because none of the code is.
I don't actually know if that's ever gone that far. I think usually what happens is the multi-billion-dollar company sends a scary legal notice, and then the developer, who's usually a kid, says, okay, I'll take it down, I guess. And it sort of fades from there.
I think there was like old like Sega developers who reverse engineered the Sega and started developing games for them. And also you have like Tencent for the Nintendo, who started creating games for Nintendo. And then Nintendo's like, well, how they stopped Tencent was they told the retailers that you can't hold Tencent games in your stores. You can only hold Nintendo games, or we won't sell you our games.
When you're saying nuts, are you saying 10 cent?
That's pretty crazy.
Tencent, isn't it? Tencent?
I think 10.
Is that how it is?
Is it 10 cent or 10 sen?
10 cent.
Tencent is a massive video game.
Tencent is China. Tencent.
Yeah, I was like,
sorry, same, but different.
Yeah. I mean,
So you are not referring to the mega.
No. Tencent. Tencent.
Okay.
Sorry.
You keep saying it as if you're making a distinction, and I cannot hear the difference. Yeah.
Tencent. With an N.
Okay, whatever. Anyway, I wanted to mention that. That's happening in the background. I'm very eager to see if that ends in some legal philosophical argument that affects all emulators and everything else. Because from what I could tell, I don't know if it was the original developer, because it was on GitHub. So a bunch of other people are working on it. It's open source and everything. And I just saw an article on PC Gamer that was saying that he was pushing back on it, and he was saying that they don't have any grounds to take it down. So
good. Fight the man.
Fight the man. The Noisy Pixel podcast terminology.
Yeah.
Slogan.
That's our slogan.
Yeah.
Fight the man. Noisy Pixel podcast.
Okay, let's move on here to more nerd shit. Victoria 3 was announced.
Oh, talk about nerd shit.
I just want to say, I'm pretty certain. Well, first of all, I have not contributed much to Noisy Pixel so far. I think I have.
Don't sell yourself short. You did a really good couple articles.
Okay. So what I'm saying is some people are getting the first impression of me right now. And I just want to say, I did not come in here swinging saying, Zario, I need to talk about fucking Victoria 3 on this podcast. I'm out of here.
If you wanted to make fans, you should have talked about Neptunia or something, some weeby ass shit. But you're coming here with Victoria. And that's,
I figured that was the best way to get into their hearts. You know, you show some real passion for something like phenomenally complicated grand strategy games that nobody plays. So yes, Victoria 3 is a grand strategy game from Paradox. Paradox makes Europa, Crusader Kings, Hearts of Iron, Stellaris. You've probably seen their games on sale many, many times. They're big into community engagement and stuff, which is kind of the cool thing about Paradox. And this announcement is kind of emblematic of that because Victoria 2, like of all the games that I just mentioned, like a lot of Paradox games are very similar if you look at them at face value. You're staring at a map and it might be in the past or in the future or right now, but there's some sort of grand strategy thing going on. And there's variations on those. So Crusader Kings is kind of like more of the adventure game, more accessible thing. Whereas Hearts of Iron is like a very complicated battle simulation for World War II specifically. And then a game like Europa is kind of like generic map painting fantasies for the, post-medieval era and things like that. Whereas Victoria 2, I probably should have looked up when that game came out, but I think it was over 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was like 2011, 2012, or 2012 maybe.
Yeah. So that one was really known as like the most complicated and like the most dense. So it takes place in like a pre-World War I, and I think you can continue through when World War I would typically happen. And it's one of those games that was very failure oriented. So if you don't know what you're doing and you turn on the game, then like within an hour or something, just some catastrophe is going to happen. You're going to have no idea what's going on, and you're probably just going to rage quit and uninstall the game. So it's become a joke in the Paradox community that whenever they tease an announcement, even if they say like, we're announcing Crusader Kings DLC later this month, stay tuned. The first comment is it Victoria 3, right? And those jokes have been going on for 5 or 6 years, and now they're actually making the game. So once again, the meme is no longer a dream. Meme magic is real. Between this and Skate 4, I think there's another example, but it seems like if you just harass these corporations' Twitter enough, they might actually make the game that you're hoping for. So
there's so many nuances to this crazy ass game, though. Looking at it gives me a headache.
Oh, you actually got the information.
Yes.
Oh, yes, because you're at the press event and you have to sit through that. Yeah. There's a lot.
Literally, it was an hour long for just that game, and they didn't even scratch the surface. We went over the hour, so it was about an hour and a half.
If you want, I can read this one bullet from a 6,000 word update on their Reddit community, Paradox Plaza.
Yeah,
and I think it will speak to whether or not, if you know nothing about this game, if this is something that you may be interested in or not. So it's 2 or 3 sentences here. Every state has a proportion of arable land, which represents how much agricultural industry it can support. Arable land, you have, that's a spelling error, cannot directly build any buildings, but will automatically generate subsistence farms, which employ peasants. Peasants represent the vast majority of the world's population at game start, and they don't produce very many taxes or sellable goods, since they're just focused on their own survival. So you'll generally want to start moving them to work in other industries if you want to grow your GDP and tax base. If that sentence and collection of sentences sounded really cool to you, then Victoria is really the game for you. I think for most people, they kind of tuned out after I said arable land.
It's so interesting, though, this demand for these micromanaging sim-like titles. Yeah. And part of me is really jealous that I can't get into it.
Hey, man. Yeah. So one of the cool things about Paradox is since they're so involved in their community, a lot of the announcements they had for Crusader Kings 3 and now Victoria 3, Crusader Kings 3, by the way, came out last year and it was a miracle of a game. But they did a lot of their announcements with like YouTubers who talk about the game all the time. So the one that they use most frequently is this guy called One Proud Bavarian. He has like 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he just does like extensive tutorials on how to play the game. And also like alternative history stuff. I forget if it was this guy, but like a really classic thing to do is you play any era of one of the games and you try to be Ireland and take over everything, because it's a small nation that's always like in the corner of the where all the real power spheres are. So it's just sort of like an interesting challenge for a lot of players. And there are YouTube videos that show like, okay, how can you actually do that? And what happens if you do that, which is the appeal of these games in general. And that's why Victoria 2 is kind of beloved, because it's the one game in the catalog that isn't a map painter. You know, you could go to war. Most of these games you can go to war, and a lot of people focus on that when they first start playing them. But they're kind of like more meant to be role-playing games where you just have like a cool idea of what you want to do, make your own fun type of thing, which is what they used to put in the games instead of tutorials, because they thought that would be sufficient information for people on how to enjoy their games. But, you know, with Crusader Kings 3, they really leaned more into giving tips to players on how to have fun with it without necessarily winning. And everything I've read about Victoria 3 so far is that they're really leaning into that. They reference that there's this developer who's referred to as Wiz, that, and one of his big beliefs is that he thinks Paradox games should have, quote, breathing worlds. So you don't necessarily know what's going to happen. There's no arbitrary decision that happens somewhere.
Like a universal thing where if you do this, this will happen every single time.
Right. So, for example, in Hearts of Iron, which is a World War II simulator, at some point Germany's going to invade Poland and the war is going to start, right? Yeah.
Always happens.
Spoilers. So in that one, it's kind of necessary. But, you know, in previous games, I think Europa 4 specifically, which was heavily criticized, especially post-release, there was a lot of attempts to just sort of throw in arbitrary things that happen just to make the game more interesting. And the player community isn't into that. They like just the total sandbox, like almost... I think that there's a game called DEF CON, which is not Paradox related, but I remember that game because it was a game that you could create a lobby. It's about nuking the world. Is generally what DEF CON's about. And you can create a lobby without being in it, and you can just set it to go and watch what happens. And that's kind of what Paradox players like to do on some level, just to sort of see like what's going to happen in this crazy world. And I know personally, as somebody that's a big fan of many of these games, that's what I do a lot of the time. And Victoria 3 looks like it's really going to lean into all that. And I am excited for the fact that it says that it's not a map painter, that it's not going to be war oriented. It's, you know, something that needs to be a little different for the catalog. Although I am worried like how successful is it going to be and how many resources can they really put into that game?
How are you comfortable with saying how many hours you've put into Crusader Kings?
I'm comfortable. Are we just talking about the third one?
Yes.
Let me pull it up. I've been playing it more recently. I have a measly 138 hours.
You're not a fan.
Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that.
You're not a real fan.
I was gonna say to most Paradox people, that is not a lot of hours.
And I mean, and that's what, and I think that's what I'm kind of jealous over, is that I officially right now don't have that time. You know, I don't even have time to play Final Fantasy 14, which is something I love. And you know, like it's.
A lot of those games are easy to put on in the background. So if you listen to podcasts like the Noisy Pixel podcast that you're listening to right now, it's easy to sort of keep on in the background while you're doing other stuff.
Because a lot of people people like me who don't have time will like speed up time or something like that in those games. But general players don't always do stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big learning curve for enjoying the games. I think I read a dev diary recently on Crusader Kings 3 that they wanted to communicate to the player that if nothing's happening, that's kind of a good thing. Which isn't necessarily intuitive if you're just like waiting for time to pass while your heirs get older. So you don't leave like a child there that's going to get murdered in its first year, you know?
It happens.
Anyway, so that's cool. You guys have any Ask me anything about Paradox games. Now's your chance. I'll try not to bring it up again in another podcast.
No, the closest I came was at PAX East for the very first time I played. And I don't even know if it's even in the same realm, but it was an RTS, and I had to interview them. And he's like, have you played the previous game? No. Have you played an RTS before? No. that was a learning curve. Yeah, for sure. But
Iron Harvest, I believe.
I think it was Iron Harvest.
Yeah, it was Iron Harvest. Yeah.
Because they asked me the same thing when I was playing it too.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at Iron Harvest, and it does not look like it's in the same vein. But
No.
Yeah, Iron Harvest is more like a kind of like a StarCrafty RTS.
Yeah.
From what you're describing, it sounds more like
Risk.
those like European board game worker placement style things, but also like sim.
Yeah, RTSs don't get made very frequently anymore.
Not good ones. Definitely.
Whoa. Iron Harvest on blast.
Sorry, Iron Harvest.
Okay, well, let's turn into something much cooler. Fashion, guys. Let's talk about gaming fashion. It's the last news story we got here. Originally inspired by this Wired article, which I hesitate to actually reference because it's clearly an advertisement. But Brian, I know you just wanted to talk about this general shift that we're seeing for fashion, the fashion industry and businesses and designers to sort of embrace gaming apparel. What were you looking at that got you interested in this?
Yeah, well, so it kind of started when we were generally just like joking in our own Discord chat about just like weird video game related clothing that's been released during our like past couple of years.
The Razer mask.
We were talking about, like the Razer mask. We're talking about the Atari like Bluetooth speaker snapback hat. I think PlayStation announced like a pair of shoes that are PlayStation brand. And it's kind of interesting because I was thinking about how like usually we always like when we go to like trade shows and stuff, we always like joke about like, oh, it's just like a video game t-shirt and a blazer. That's like the uniform for everybody giving like a press conference thing. But now we've got like companies like Louis Vuitton and things like that sponsoring companies like League of Legends and things to like make video game like a premium fashion item, which feels strange to me because I can't personally imagine anybody paying that much money to wear such a thing. So
I can't imagine a gaming apparel that isn't laughable.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
It's always kind of like a spectacle, like really bright colors or something.
I would put it right up there with the jacket from Drive in terms of like, if I recognize that's what you're driving or wearing, then I'm like, okay, dude.
Fuck you.
Yeah. It's weird because like, I mean, we all love video games, but at the same time, maybe it's, I don't know if it's like the corporate, I don't know what it is, but it does kind of, it is kind of weird to see that, especially like I got this shirt at like Target. Do you know what I mean? So like when you have,
for audio listeners, you are wearing a Zelda t-shirt.
Zelda t-shirt.
Yeah. But then you also have these like fashionistas that also are doing, I don't know, it's just really bizarre.
Because like what you're saying, like a $10 t-shirt or like video game t-shirt, it's like, okay, that feels very on brand. You know, like gamers, $10 t-shirt from Target. I get that. And then you have like $1,000 jackets from like Louis Vuitton. And then you're just, part of me internally, I'm just like, if someone was wearing that, I would be like, who the fuck do you think you are? Sort of thing, you know?
The other problem is like you only have like the low society and high society options, like like the classic fedora wearing guy who sees like he goes to the internet and he sees like a full suit with a guy wearing fedora. And like, I mean, in that picture, it looks kind of cool, but like, you can't just pop that on anywhere, you know? So like in my mind, like some of like the gaming specific fashion stuff that I think is really cool is like the outfits in like Dishonored or Deus Ex, but like, I'm not going to rock Adam Jensen's jacket in public. Like,
you know, go to like steampunk little conventions and
I mean, like if there's like some, like a Dishonored themed party or something, You know,
that's different. But you wouldn't go shopping and you wouldn't
go to a Whole Foods
dishonored.
Fully dressed.
Yeah, cosplay is very different than like just wearing that in your day to day life. Yeah,
like that's your outfit. But even aside from that, we want to express ourselves, right? And we want the people around us to kind of know what our interest is in. That's why you have people buy band shirts and stuff, and it's rare. It's rare nowadays to see people just wear a blank T-shirt out and about.
Ian's comment a second ago is making me think: is there like an uncanny valley in video games where, like, if the apparel is like nice enough, then it doesn't look like clothing anymore? It looks like cosplay. You know what I mean?
That's interesting. What game do you see yourself wearing the clothes? You know, like on a day to day.
I've been to a convention where they were doing like a cosplay contest, and this dude, it just looked like a dude walked up, and I recognized it because it was from is it Infamous? I think it's just like kind of street clothes.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, "What are you?"
Like a yellow jacket.
Dude. Yeah, it just looks like a guy, but yeah, I don't know where that line kind of, that's interesting where that kind of blurs. But.
Yeah, I remember I had a Halloween party during the pandemic. So it was like 8 people and we all got tested and whatever.
Super spreader.
That's me.
Had to preface it with all the stuff, precautions you took prior to Halloween.
Noisy Pixel does not support super spreader events.
Anyway, so someone showed up in a Watch Dogs outfit. So he was dressed like Aiden Pierce.
Aiden
I think his name
Pierce.
was. But when the guy showed up, I didn't even think he was in a costume. I was like, man, you didn't even wear anything, you know? Because I mean, that guy has a mask in the game and, you know, it's just like a jacket. And then the moment that I saw that it was like actually an accurate cosplay, then suddenly I like, it went from like, oh, cool jacket to like, okay, you look stupid, you know?
A quick shift.
Because once you've associated with the video game, then you're just like, that's not fashion anymore. That's a costume.
Yeah.
We're all just GTA NPCs, you know? We're all just wearing normal.
Just trying to get reverse engineered, hanger man.
I don't know. I don't know if it's like the issue of the pricing too, because I know like Nintendo has done like exclusive like fashion stuff, but like at the most it's like $30 and it's more like designer based things that are, I mean, fairly affordable, I guess. Right. So I don't know if it's the price also that bothers me. Like I don't know. It seems a little much to have that price tag for something that's so nerdy. And I mean that in the best way, because I mean, we're all nerds here, but like,
yeah. Like, would you spend $2,000 for a Cookie Monster jacket?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the same thing that you're getting at, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Like if people who are really into a certain property and then they pay absorbent amount of money to get a piece of clothing inspired by said property.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would approach somebody that's had a $2,000 Cookie Monster or anything.
Well, now we got to talk about what's the dumbest fashion adjacent gaming accessory you've purchased. And
probably a figure.
Oh, I forgot Azario was here. You know, we're going to be here all day.
I stopped buying clothes years ago. Any gaming shirt that I have is all given to me.
This is your only shirt, and you're just
no. My money went to games. Can't buy clothes anymore.
Yeah, any clothes I wear have all been given to me by companies and stuff. Any gaming shirt.
It's been fired by a t-shirt cannon or
I do not buy clothes ever.
All my clothes have been received by Canon.
That'd be pretty.
Is that like an Amazon delivery? No,
I just go to Stadium sometimes and they shoot a Canon. I'm like, that's my shirt for the month.
They'll just give you free clothes. This place is
sure, it doesn't fit all the time, but you know, a shirt's a shirt.
Yeah.
That's a
monster truck rally shirts and stuff, just random stuff.
What is the worst like the gaming fashion kind of stuff that you have, or like most embarrassing?
I wonder. I was saying like just accessory in general. I would just want to take the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, I purchased the Halo helmet and the Gears of War Lancer. I think that was the same year or within a year, and those are just sitting somewhere. You know?
Yeah. It sucks because in that time that you bought that though, it was like kind of cool, you know, kind of.
I took a picture and actually shared it on the internet, and now I know that it wasn't cool and that I should not have done that. Right.
I feel that way too. I years ago, I bought these limited edition boxes, and I was like, oh, these are the coolest. And now I have all the limited edition boxes in boxes, you know, with unwrapped soundtracks and little stupid art books and everything.
And you never listen to.
I never open, and that's what happened.
I'll even do you one better. I remember arguing somewhat passionately when we were moving towards like all digital, and I was saying like, well, I'm never going to go all digital. You know, I want to get like the actual game. I want the boxes so I can look at it and be like, this is something I own. I mean, that was partly because, you know, we weren't living in the times of obvious tech monopolies where there's some certainty that Amazon's going to be around forever now. But like when Steam first started, like, hey, if Steam goes out of business, what happens to all my games? You know, that's still a question, but I don't worry about it as much because I think they're going to be there forever. But despite arguing that way, now everything I own is on Steam. Like you can't even buy a physical thing if you wanted to, right? So,
yeah.
I haven't seen a PC physical anything in like ages.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah,
because who even has a drive for that anymore? Like you know, everybody who's building PCs don't just ignore the drive altogether.
Or I mean, even if you buy the physical thing, it's just a code in the box anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you're like, hey, you paid for this box.
The CD is a novelty now. It's just thrown in there.
Blu-ray, Azario, please.
Oh, sorry.
I
fucked up.
Hold on, I need to hear from Ian and Brian what their stupidest gaming accessory or fashion-related purchase were before we move on here.
League of Legends Kigurumi that's designed after, I think, one of like the teddy bear skills that one of the characters uses. And like as I said, at the time, I was very hyped for that purchase.
Yeah.
And I wore it and took a picture and everything. But in post, I have not put it on since. And it was like, okay.
When my DSLR gets hot, it turns off.
I was going to say, Azario, we lost you. You are now reporting from the void.
He's just so ashamed of me. I spouted out what I purchased, and he's like,
he had to leave.
It just means we talked for an hour.
Ian, what's yours?
I collected a lot of stuff that I guess I don't feel embarrassed about it because I try to really think that stuff out and probably get a little obsessive about it. But I did recently get rid of a life-size like Keyblade. Yeah. And not that I was embarrassed by that. Probably the most embarrassing thing I have is, it's a little TMI, but I have Five Nights at Freddy's boxer briefs. They were on discount, man. And I was like, I need underwear, you know? So
are they at least comfortable?
They're comfortable, actually. They're not bad.
And that's all that matters, you know? That's one of those things where it's like, it's a for me thing.
Yeah, but I don't feel...
Do you wear those on a date? Would you ever wear them on a date?
Good question.
Only if I was trying to sabotage myself.
I mean, it would not matter because it is unlikely your date would notice them at all.
And then for those listening to this, if you guys want to comment on it, would that be a deal breaker for you if you discovered that your date was wearing Five Nights at Freddy's underwear?
Or do you prefer you won't date anybody without?
Or the other exclusively
Five Nights or Freddy's or bust.
Yeah,
that's my dating motto. You know, if we do want to do some community engagement, if anybody listening to this wants to share some stupid purchases they have, or maybe more optimistically, if there is some fashion piece in a game or adjacent to a game that you would actually purchase, share it with us, and maybe we'll talk about it next time.
Base Azario's new look on it.
Yeah, choose my look.
Because he only has the one shirt.
For now, I think we're going to take a break. I don't know if you need time to look at that camera, and then we're going to come back and talk about some games that we've been playing lately. So
sounds good.
Stay tuned. Welcome back, folks, to the Noisy Pixel Podcast. We're going to talk about some games we've been playing. Let's start in order of newest games. So I'm going to toss it over to Ian. You've been playing a game that is coming out shortly, or should be out by the time this is released, right?
Yeah, Maneater, and this one's for Switch. Other versions of it came out about a year ago.
Yeah,
and
I played it on PC, so we can compare.
Yeah, and it's fun. And so by the time that people are listening to this, the review will be out. But yeah,
what'd you give it? What's the score? I'm scrolling to the bottom.
Can I give away the score now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I gave it a 7, and I'll tell you the hardest part about this, because I totally understand this argument, which is there are some real hounds out there for frame rate and stuff like that, and it does drop a lot and it does lag in areas, but at the same time it's Switch, so for me I kind of feel like a lot of Switch owners expect that for these kind of games.
Isn't that interesting how
standards are lower?
We give it because I know a lot of, you're not the only reviewer that does this, and a lot and I do it also, and it's like, well, I'm playing this game on Nintendo Switch, like of course it's gonna have this frame rate issue.
And I think when it came down to it, is in the end, like I had a hard time giving it anything less than that because I had a good time playing it. So even though it was like not the best performance, and there are other options out there that perform way better, the fact that I could just like chill anywhere and eat people as a shark, I was happy with that. And I would think maybe people that are on Switch, I mean, that's kind of what they're looking for too. Something portable like that. It's about it performance wise, it's about what I expected, I guess.
Yeah. So. Looking at your footage too, it was nothing. I mean, it was better than what I thought. Like,
really? Okay.
Yeah. You're saying the frame drops and there was less like environment stuff. And clearly the PC version is going to be wildly improved, but you have all the game doesn't suck.
Exactly.
It's a fun game. So if you can translate that to Switch, that entertainment, I don't like, if the controls were unresponsive, that would suck, because that game is all about controls. Like if if that took a hit, I'm not a stickler for frame rate. That's my problem though. If it's not affecting my enjoyment, I don't care.
And that's the unofficial motto of 7 out of 10. It doesn't suck, right?
Yeah, it doesn't suck. And the reason I bring it up so much though is because I know a lot of our viewers are like, I'm just looking at past reviews I've done, and they're just like, dude, how could you give this review when like it's so like the frame rate drops and stuff like that. So I know
it's locked to 30 FPS. Like what's wrong with you? Yeah,
exactly. So I know that's out there. So I try to be, just very open about that. Like if that's an issue, this is going to bug you, so.
Yeah. In our 7s out of 10s are generally, if you're a fan, it's good. You're going to be fine.
I know you and I, we can argue about this forever.
I'm down. Yeah. We could have a whole episode.
For Ian and Brian, I am very skeptical of 10-point scales. I think nobody uses them correctly. I don't think the human brain is designed for 10-point scales. I agree.
And I only agree partially with you because we've been reviewing manga on a 5-point scale, and it is completely different. Like you get a lot more 2.5s, which would translate to a 5 out of 10 on a 10-point scale, and you get a lot more 2s. And I totally agree. I think
I say no half points. You really don't need. I mean, anything below a 5 out of 10 is a game you're not going to play, and you don't need 5 different ways to say that. But I can see why it can be an issue sometimes. Like I reviewed that one game. God, what was it called? Yes, Your Grace.
Yes, Your Grace.
And I did it on a 5-point scale, and then I just doubled it. Yeah. And sure enough, I was the lowest score on all of Metacritic, right? And
everyone loved that game.
I mean, it was fine. I think I actually reviewed it the same as everyone else. I just used the number more accurately, but whatever.
No one can be as good as you, Arthur. We try. We try, but we understand that we can.
A reality I'm not ready to accept just yet. So sorry, I apologize. I didn't realize that this game had actually been release and this is just a Switch release.
Yeah, right. And I think it brings to the conversation though, like Switch ports in general, just in how we approach them.
But for someone who missed this game entirely, can you give a quick pitch of what this is? I know you said it was a shark PG earlier.
Yeah, you play as a shark and you eat people. And that's basically all you need to know. So it's if you played like Jaws 3D, I think it was like on PS2.
We all did.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. Now I have the reference I need.
Who didn't play Jaws 3D?
Yeah. So
if I saw the movie. Yeah.
I mean, if you want a game where you like eat people as a shark, I mean, that's exactly what it is, you know. And you have like weird mutant abilities that you can gain, and it's so over the top and ridiculous, but it would be really dumb to me. It would be like dumber if they went more of that edgelordy vibe and we're like, no, this is super serious, you're a shark, you know. And like it's good that it's comical, you know. So
Shark Tales, my life has been ruined ever since I became a shark.
The dad from Rick and Morty is in it. Gary or Jerry.
Yeah, Chris Parnell, right?
Yeah, he's the narrator, great. So you get to hear his voice all the time.
His voice is like you know it right away.
Yeah,
he is such a iconic voice.
I know him as Cyril from Archer.
Oh yeah, okay. Hipster over here.
Yeah,
I only liked Archer when it was good, which was season 1 and 2.
He's gonna name drop Space Coast to Coast.
Space Coast to Coast. That's it.
Space
Did you spot my poster behind me, my Space Coast to Coast poster?
No, but I just guessed that I knew you would be a fan.
Because I'm such a big fan.
I just one look at you and I know this is a fan.
Space Coast to Coast. Okay, well, that sounds good. Let me go over instead to Brian. I think you said that you were playing a game that's not released yet. Swords of Legend Online, right?
Yeah, it's called Swords of Legend Online. And it's an MMORPG that's coming out. I believe it's in beta now, as we're recording this. And I got a chance to play the alpha build for it. And the premise of it's one of those like, if you've watched like a
high
Crouching
fantasy
Tiger, Hidden Dragon type like like Asian drama, it's basically like one of those where it's like Eastern fantasy cultivation martial arts type situation where
Chinese
there's swords and they're legendary, and then some dude got a sword and it's a bad sword and he's a bad guy.
And he's online.
You're a special dude who has a special sword, so you got to go stop that bad guy sword guy, and that's what the gist of the story I understood it to be.
Dude, how much story is in there though?
It's quite a bit. Dude. Like there's a lot of cutscenes. Everything was like VO'd with English subtitles, which was very surprising for an alpha build. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It does like
English subtitles, so they're going hard on the.
Yeah, it's fully in Chinese and with English subtitles.
Wild.
I don't know if that's just like a placeholder or if they do plan on doing English VO eventually. I doubt it if they put all this VO in already.
Yeah, Chinese developers love story. So there are some Chinese developed games where I'm literally sitting for 25 minutes just listening to these people talk. And it's all exposition, and it's high fantasy, just beautiful storytelling.
I have to say this game, I mean, visually looks incredible.
Oh yeah, it was very beautiful. They really captured the aesthetics of that like genre very well.
Yeah, which you usually don't want to do for an online game, right? Because they want people to run it on like their netbooks,
on like
a
toaster. Yeah, exactly. But there was a lot of stuff that during the alpha they did like really well from as a fan of like MMORPGs. Just like small things where you can customize the UI and the HUD. I think that's like a big thing for a lot of MMORPGs where a lot of companies, they just like, this is what the HUD is. You can make it smaller or bigger and that's it. And then people want to mod it to be able to like shift the map around, change what the map looks like, show what information shows up because you're trying to do a raid or something. And they did a really good job with the options in the system to show like the information you care about. You can move everything around in the thing, which was really cool.
Can you give an abridged version of what this mythical story is, or is that impossible because it's just nonsense?
That's pretty much. I think what I said earlier was pretty much the summary of what the story was.
Good sword, bad sword.
There's like a whole like I don't like afterlife celestial beings type thing going on where there's these legendary swords, and then you're like going through this trial to like get commune with this one of the legendary swords, and then some dude gets corrupted by an evil sword and you have to stop him, and it seemed very loose. I'm sure I was in a rush to try to like get through as much content as I could to actually write the thing up. So I did skip a lot of stuff, just prefacing that here.
How much have you played of it?
I played a pretty decent amount. As a couple different characters too, because I wanted to get a different play styles for the different classes.
Could you ballpark the hour number?
Ooh, ballpark the hour number.
Like decent amount for an MMO.
That's
I don't
fair.
know what
That's
means,
a good point.
You know?
It wouldn't be a decent amount for an MMO. I feel like decent amount to spend with a game in general, but as for an MMO, I don't think I scratched too much of the surface.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of content in there. I think there's like PvP stuff. I saw something in the in-game tutorial logs where you could put bounties on people who killed you so that other players can get money for avenging you.
In-game mechanics for griefing, always a fan.
I was like, I'm interested to see how that plays out.
And also MMOs live and breathe by their end game. So anything.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes as well. Yeah.
Well, I feel like there's been a lot of, specifically Chinese online games that are junk in the past 10 years.
Definitely.
There's an entire section of Steam's page that is just all that stuff. Do you get a sense of where this lands? Well, first of all, I know you can't play this right now, but it's not.
You can. I think if you buy, they have bundles available right now for you to be able to play the beta currently. So
okay.
You can play.
Well, that was one thing I was going to say. First of all, you're actually buying it. It's listed on Steam as $40, so it's not free to play. Do you get a sense of where it lands in the market right now?
I think for like, Asian MMORPGs, it always bogs down to like they try to milk it for all it's worth money wise, where they, a lot of the end game content involves like gachapon systems and like paying actual money to be able to progress anywhere. From what I saw so far and what I've heard from the community, they're not trying to go that direction, which is already a step in the right direction. So as far as an MMORPG, I think it could be as fun as something like Guild Wars 2, where it's like a one-time pay and you can play the game out. There wasn't anything like particular, like, wow, this is super impressive, or like, oh, this is, brand new and all that stuff. A lot of the stuff is things you've seen already in MMORPGs. They just have done a good job of kind of picking a little bit of the best of a lot of different things and trying to mash it together.
Can I play as Lu Bu?
You can play as a spear person and name yourself in game as Lu Bu. So
there you go.
I'll take it.
You heard it here first.
Get myself some braids.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Did you actually want to talk about League of Legends Wild Drift, or
no,
was that a joke recommendation?
That was more of a, oh, what are you playing, Brian? It's like, I'm playing League of Legends Wild. Don't judge me. One thing I'll say is that people are a lot worse at that game on mobile than
so that's why you go on there.
Exactly. It makes me feel like a big fish in a little pond.
Get the rank up. It's all it's for. Gotta get these scholarships somehow.
Exactly.
All right, Azaria, let's talk about what you're playing.
I'm playing a PlayStation 5 port of a PS4 game but it's the PS5 version called Void Terrarium Plus. Came out, I think, on PS4 and Switch a while ago, but this plus version is they just added some more content. The game is literally 300 megabytes big. I doubt they needed to release this as a PS5 exclusive, but NIS America seemed to put out something, right? It's not like reuse that content. It's I would say it's a daughter raising sim. It's just you.
It's such a weird genre name.
All those daughter raisers out there. So first of all, are you making up this genre? Is this
no, it's like Princess Maker, Princess Maker RPG or whatever. You never have Princess Maker? No.
How many games does it have to have for it to be established as its own genre?
Yeah.
There's a ton of daughter raising sims out there.
Just daughter specific. Yes.
Yeah, they don't do sons. What are you
I think you can understand like when something animated is like, yeah, it's a daughter raising thing.
Oh, you guys, like, your heads just go to the wrong place. Some of us are just trying to raise our daughters right. All right. God.
Trying to make them into princesses.
This one, you're a robot and the world's end, and you find this girl who's kind of mutated. Something's clearly wrong with her, but you work with this AI computer to go into the dungeons, collect items, and make an ecosystem for her. And you build her terrarium pretty much. And this includes building bushes and boxes, and you get to place them in there. And each thing you build, you get like a +5 attack, because essentially it's supposed to be a dungeon crawler RPG like Sharon the Wanderer or anything like that. But but without there's like a roguelike element to it where everything's procedurally generated, but it's not asking you to get pretty far, because the items that you gather at the end of a run or when you die gets converted into these points that you can use to build more objects. So you're rewarded whether you die or not. Some items, they're like, you need to get to the 10th floor to get this item type of thing. So that's when you have to go all the way down. But once you get the item, you can just die right away, and it just depends. So that's what I kind of don't like. It's like everything happens on a timer, in this linear timer. She's going to get sick at some point. She's going to get this, and that's how they progress the narrative. But I don't like that you're rewarded whether you win or you lose. There's no incentive to really go far, because you could just, if you have a full inventory by the 3rd floor, you just die because that inventory will be converted. There's no reason for you to continue going to the 10th floor, because you're going to have the same items.
You don't lose anything.
You don't lose anything. You keep you keep everything when you die. Which I would have liked something like, well, if you die, then some of your items get destroyed, or
right.
But then like every 5 floors, there's a way to escape, or you can escape on your own type of thing. And that's how, keep going or go to the next floor, or go back. I would have liked that more.
Do the items get better as you get higher up in the floor?
No, they don't.
So there's really no point in going to like floor 10 versus floor 5.
Yeah. And in the later dungeons, they'll have like these roaches that are very fast, but if you manage to kill them, they raise your level up twice, because your level starts at 1 every single time. So there's some issues there, but the game is beautiful, and it's like really pretty game, and you kind of get addicted into the game loop of getting stronger and
the classic roguelike.
Yeah, just adjusting to whatever it throws at you. And then there's like this weird, like the AI might be evil, and you're like trying to battle with that interpretation. So, but that's the gist of it. And it's an interesting dungeon RPG. And I don't think this should have been a PS5 exclusive. There's nothing PS5-y about it. There's nothing current gen about it.
Anything with the triggers?
Sounds like something I'd purchase for the.
There's no DualSense, and on the record, I hate the DualSense triggers, haptic feedback, more like haptic sleep back.
Got him.
Good app.
Or like haptic, turn that off right in the options menu.
Give me the old controller back. Am I right?
That's pretty good.
Why don't you like them? I think like the actual I don't have a PS5, but a friend of mine does, and I think I played Hitman on it, and just like that, that strong resistance. So it feels like you're actually doing a trigger pull.
The reason why it's the sillier moments are when you're playing like Resident Evil 8, when you're switching weapons, and you can hear it you could hear it adjusting in the triggers, like the adjusting the tensions.
Interesting.
Or there's like Call of Duty where you're online and you're like trying to shoot, trying to get that 360 no scope. You can't do that with tension. You gotta turn that off if you're gonna get the top tier.
Yeah, do it for the immersion. I did play Returnal, which had like a weird system.
Yes.
Of like a half pole. That I wasn't a fan of. I thought that was kind of getting in the way. But
I think it's a silly gimmick. And I mean, it's cool, but it's like there's things I like about the Xbox controller and there's things I like about the PS5 controller, But
which one's better, Azario?
Why does the Xbox Series X controller still need goddamn batteries? What is this like weird obsession? Microsoft, did they have a buy-in with the Duracell or something? What's going on here?
Well, you can get a recharge pack, and if you don't have the problem with the PS4 didn't have batteries, right, on the controllers, but
not even the PS3 did.
I guess that's true. But like there's still a battery in there. You just can't take it out. And over time, the battery will fail. So then you'll just have a controller that has like...
You have to buy the battery pack.
You guys sound like an apologist.
For the Xbox controllers.
Oh, I'm apologizing for the limits of technology, Azario.
Bunch of apologists. But that's all I got to say about that. Okay.
Very cool. Well, that's kind of all the games we've been talking about. So I think that's the end of the show.
Yeah. This is better than our first attempt at a reboot. I should have said that off air.
All right, you can cut it out in post.
But now you got to say whose fault it was specifically. And for both why it's better and why the original was worse.
We'll save that for off air.
For next week.
For next week,
stay
tuned. Stay tuned.
Of the drama behind Noisy Pixel podcast operations.
Shop.
Yeah, stay tuned. Exactly. Do you have like an email or anything? I should.
You can email pr@noisypixel.net.
If you have a question for the show, or you just want to, let us know we're doing a great job, send an email to pr@noisypixel.net, or leave a comment on the YouTube channel or anything like that. But otherwise, thanks for taking the time to listen to the podcast, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.